Failures often condemn themselves by saying, "I'm not disciplined enough." But the truth that few see is that discipline is only a branch, while the system is the root. If the root is weak, the branch will break no matter how strong the will. Discipline is like a flame. It burns brightly when the wind is favorable, but it goes out quickly when the rain falls. A true system is different. It doesn't rely on the weather, it doesn't depend on mood, and it isn't swayed by temporary events. It is the solid foundation that allows you to keep moving forward even when you have no spark of excitement left. People often begin with a dazzling goal. They write down what they want, imagine the day of success, and swear to maintain their determination. But then real life comes. Work piles up, the mind gets distracted, pressures pull them down, and that goal is left forgotten in a corner. Not because they no longer want it, but because there is no system to protect it when motivation fades. Discipline is personal strength. A system is an objective structure. When tired, humans will always seek the easiest way out. Without a ready-made mechanism to guide you, you will choose comfort over progress. And each time that happens, your trust in yourself wears away a little more. Imagine two people who both want to write a book. The first relies on inspiration. On days of enthusiasm, they write dozens of pages. On days without it, the pen lies still. The second sets a system. Every morning, regardless of mood, they sit at the desk and write 500 words. After a year, who will finish? No question. A system frees you from the internal negotiation of, should I do this today? It makes action the default, like brushing your teeth or locking the door before going out. When action becomes part of the daily structure, you don't need to spend willpower just to get started. The power of a system lies in its consistency. It doesn't require you to always be strong. It only needs you to repeat exactly what was designed beforehand. And on the days when you are drained, the system will carry the part of your will that has run dry. A good system also reduces your dependence on emotions. Emotions change like the weather. Relying on them to act is a fragile strategy. Instead of asking, "What do I feel like doing today?" you simply follow the preset schedule, what to do at what time, without having to rethink. This frees your mind to focus on the quality of the action, rather than wasting energy on deciding. Ask yourself, what in your life still happens consistently, even when everything around you is chaotic? The answer will show where the strength of your current system lies and where its gaps are. If you can't point to at least a few activities that are never skipped, that's a clear sign you are living in a loose structure. The difference between pure discipline and discipline supported by a system is stability. Those who rely only on discipline may burst forward, but also collapse easily. Those with a system may move slower, but they almost never fall back. And in the long run, it is the absence of retreat that creates great results. A common mistake is building a system so complex that it requires ideal conditions to function. When life becomes turbulent, such a system collapses because it cannot withstand a bad day. Remember, a system must be designed to survive in chaos. Better simple and durable than elaborate and fragile. Start from the smallest points that have the biggest impact. Instead of committing to 2 hours at the gym every day, begin with 20 minutes of movement at 7 a.m. Instead of reading 50 pages each night, make it 2 pages before bed. When the minimum becomes habit, you can expand without fear of losing momentum. A system is also a safety net against procrastination. When you know exactly what the next step is, and it already has a place in your day, you have fewer chances to make excuses. Each completion, no matter how small, is a brick building the belief that you are someone who does what you set out to do. Don't let yourself repeat the cycle of start strong, quit, start again. Every time you restart, you teach yourself that quitting is acceptable. A system breaks this cycle by keeping you moving even when motivation disappears. When evaluating any area of your life, health, finances, skills, relationships, look at the system backing it. If all you have are vague promises and short-lived enthusiasm, take it as a warning. Success does not come from moments of brilliance, but from what you do even when no one is watching. So don't just ask, how can I be more disciplined? Ask, how can I make my system unshakable when I'm at my most exhausted? Once you can answer that, you'll see that you no longer depend on emotional waves. You'll have a path to keep walking, whether the sky is sunny or rainy, whether your heart is excited or weary. And when that happens, discipline is no longer a daily battle. It becomes the natural result of a solid system. A system you've built so it cannot be defeated by any shifting winds of life. A system only truly has value when it remains standing on your worst days. Anyone can work when their spirit is high, when energy is abundant, when everything goes according to plan. But life is not made up only of such days. There will be mornings when your body feels heavy, your mind foggy, your motivation scraping the bottom. There will be weeks when pressure surrounds you, when even the smallest tasks feel overwhelming. In those moments, those without a system will stop. They think, it's fine to skip today, I can do it tomorrow, and give themselves permission to rest. Yet it is precisely these days that mark the turning point. Either you keep moving forward, or you let everything slip into a downward spiral. No one falls downhill because of just one missed day, but every surrender begins with a day like that. A system exists to remove negotiation with yourself. It makes the question, will I do it today, meaningless, because the answer is always yes. You don't check your motivation, you don't wait for inspiration, you simply execute what has already been set, just like brushing your teeth. You don't need to enjoy it to do it, you do it because it is part of life. To achieve this, the system must be designed at a minimum level that can be sustained even under the worst conditions. Don't build perfect processes that only work when the seas are calm. Life won't stay calm as long as you want. Instead, set standards simple enough that even in exhaustion you can still meet them. 2 pages of reading instead of 50. 20 minutes of movement instead of 2 hours of training. 1 healthy meal instead of an elaborate diet plan. The important thing is to keep the rhythm, to not let the chain break. When you maintain that rhythm, you protect your identity. I am someone who doesn't quit halfway. A bad day can still become a winning day if you complete your minimum requirement. Those without a system often restart over and over. They begin with excitement, keep it up for a few days or weeks, and then a small disruption is enough to destroy everything. When they return, they must start from scratch, expending twice the effort. In contrast, those with a system never have to start again. They simply continue. They understand that moving slowly is still better than stopping altogether. A strong system for bad days is also a shield against pointless self-blame. Many people, when they fail to stick to their plan, immediately diminish themselves, seeing it as a total failure. This mindset makes quitting even easier. But if your system has already accounted for the weaker version of yourself, you won't fall into the spiral of guilt. You know you are still on the path, even if at a slower pace. To build such a system, you must observe yourself. Record the situations, times, or mental states that most often cause you to give up. Once identified clearly, set alternative measures. If mornings are when you tend to procrastinate, schedule your most important task for that time and reduce its difficulty to a level you can't excuse yourself from. If afternoons are when you lose focus, create a checkpoint, like removing your phone from your desk for an hour. Remember, the goal of the system is not to make every day look like a good day, but to ensure there are no days that drop to doing nothing. When you achieve this, you break the rhythm of failure. A bad week still has 7 days of action, instead of a few scattered days and the rest lost to procrastination. Many measure success by their peak days, the days they accomplish a lot, break limits. But the real value lies in the ability to endure on the low days. Someone who knows how to protect the minimum on bad days will surpass someone who only shines momentarily. Because success does not come from a single burst, but from hundreds of uninterrupted steps. Finally, remind yourself, the system is your most loyal gatekeeper. It is there when you are weak, when you are lost, when you want to quit. It doesn't require you to be strong all the time. It only needs you to honor the minimum commitment, and each time you do that, even on your worst day, you are silently engraving into yourself a message: I am still moving forward. It is not the strength you show on the good days that defines you, but your ability to not lose yourself on the bad ones. And a true system will ensure exactly that. Emotions are the most unstable variable in life. If every decision to act must pass through the committee of whether you like it or not, you will miss most of the important things. Emotions shift with the weather, with the quality of your sleep, with an offhand comment from someone. Today you feel excited, tomorrow you feel sluggish. And if your actions depend on those waves, your progress will always be interrupted. Those who sustain lasting results understand clearly. Liking or disliking is information, not a command. It can be acknowledged, but it is not allowed to decide. When a system has already set the task, the time and the method, whether you want to do it or not becomes irrelevant. You act because you chose it beforehand, not because a fleeting feeling approves. Observe a professional athlete. They do not wake up every morning wanting to train. There are days when it rains, when their body feels heavy, when their mind is tired. Yet they still go to the field, enter the gym, and complete the workout. For them, the training schedule is an order, not a suggestion. The choice was put aside in advance, so when the moment comes, there is only the doing. When you remove the like or dislike factor, you reduce a dangerous form of energy drain, internal negotiation. Every time you consider, should I do this today, you are depleting willpower before even starting. Repeat this often enough, and willpower runs out, letting procrastination win. A system saves you from this spiral by turning important tasks into unquestionable defaults. This does not mean you must live mechanically. It is liberation, because you no longer waste time and energy redeciding every day. Your brain has a limited capacity for focus and endurance. If you spend it on small, trivial choices, you won't have enough left for the bigger ones. A system that removes excess decisions exists to preserve your energy for battles that truly matter. To apply this, start by identifying the actions that are non-negotiable. These are the things that must happen regardless of mood: exercising, reading, writing reports, calling clients. Then lock them into a specific time and context. Run for 20 minutes at 6 a.m. every morning is clearer and stronger than try to exercise every day. When the time comes, you just step out the door, not question whether you feel like it. Part of removing emotion from decision-making is learning to separate mood from identity. Your mood might be discouraged, but your identity is that of someone who acts. If you let your mood define you, you become a prisoner of each wave of excitement or fatigue. But if you hold on to identity, you see action as normal, requiring no special feeling to begin. Some may argue, if I don't like it, how can I do it well? In reality, many things only require you to start, and quality will naturally rise. Positive emotions are often the result of action, not the condition for it. How many times have you reluctantly begun something, only to get into the flow and feel relieved afterward? That is proof that waiting for the right feeling is the wrong strategy. Removing like or dislike also helps you avoid the trap of disruption. Those who depend on feelings work in cycles: excitement, burst, exhaustion, neglect, return. Each cycle costs time to restart and erodes self-belief. In contrast, when you always maintain a minimum level of action regardless of mood, your progress becomes steady and enduring. This also opens up another kind of freedom, freedom from your own fluctuations. You are no longer dragged by moods, no longer waiting for a good day to do the right thing. Each action becomes a solid anchor in your day, keeping you on course even when the winds shift. Over time, this separation creates a zone of psychological safety. You know you will still complete the core tasks, even during difficult phases. You no longer worry, if I'm in a bad mood today, I'll neglect things. And this greatly reduces mental pressure because you are no longer living in fear of being betrayed by yourself. The greatest result of removing the like or dislike factor is that you become trustworthy to yourself. No more promises made then broken, no more plans left unfinished because of shifting moods. You build the image of a person who acts according to values and plans, not fleeting feelings. From that foundation, all achievements can become lasting. Once you are used to this, you will discover a paradox. Acting without needing emotion is actually how you nurture long-term positive emotions. Because each time you complete something, you gain confidence, satisfaction, and from there positive feelings naturally emerge. No longer dependent on initial excitement, you generate it from your own consistent action. And at that point, the question, do I feel like doing this today, will have no place in your life. Instead, there will be certainty. It's time, and I do it. Big plans often collapse, not because they are wrong, but because they are too heavy to survive chaotic days. When life suddenly turns, when schedules pile up, when your mind is pulled in dozens of directions, you cannot maintain a massive workload. In that state, anything that demands too much time or energy becomes a reason to postpone. Starting small is the only strategy that allows a system to survive when everything around you falls out of order. A small action doesn't require much strength to start, doesn't create pressure that pushes you to look for excuses to escape. It can slip into even the most crowded days, protect your minimum pace, and keep you from sliding off track. Many people make the mistake of starting with a standard so high it only works on a good day. They set goals like reading 50 pages every night, going to the gym for 2 hours every morning, writing 3,000 words a day. When life is calm, they can do it, but just a week of busyness or a few disruptions and the entire plan shatters. This interruption not only breaks the habit, it creates a sense of failure and erodes your trust in yourself. In contrast, a small action, reading 2 pages, moving for 15 minutes, writing 300 words, is easy to maintain even when time is tight. You can still complete it while traveling or when mentally exhausted. And it is this continuity that keeps you going, because a habit that is still alive can always be expanded once things stabilize. Starting small does not mean setting mediocre goals. It means building the foundation before constructing the upper floors. A strong foundation is not measured by grandeur, but by its capacity to bear weight over time. Treat each small action like a brick, ordinary on its own, but repeated long enough, it becomes a wall shielding you from storms. The key to starting small is removing psychological resistance. When a task is simple enough, your brain has no reason to fight it. Instead of thinking, "Today is too busy, I probably can't work out for 2 hours," you think, 20 minutes, I can manage that. And once you start, you often end up doing more than expected. But even if you don't, you still win because you've kept your commitment. In a chaotic environment, what you need most is not speed, but to avoid stopping completely. One small step each day will keep you in a moving state, and that state is more valuable than any perfect plan abandoned halfway. Continuity creates positive momentum, making it easier to return to full speed when the opportunity comes. Remember that endurance is not built in favorable conditions, but in challenging days. If you can maintain a small action even when everything is upside down, you are training yourself in a rare ability, resilience in the face of change. This is a skill that those who can only work under ideal conditions will never have. This strategy also helps you avoid the all-or-nothing trap. Many people think if they can't do it perfectly as planned, they might as well skip it. They choose 0 instead of 30%. But 30% is still progress, and accumulated over time, it far surpasses a repeated 0. A wise system always accounts for the minimum version of every habit so that, no matter what, you still have a way to follow through. Our trick to apply this: review all your goals and ask, what is the smallest, simplest version of this? Write 1 page instead of a chapter, work out for 10 minutes instead of an hour, read 2 pages instead of 20. Then lock this minimum version as the non-negotiable standard. When things are stable, you can upgrade, but when chaos strikes, you can still maintain. Starting small also brings an important psychological advantage. It creates a sense of daily completion. Finishing a task, no matter how small, still releases dopamine and reinforces the belief, I can do it. That belief counters mental fatigue and prevents you from slipping into surrender. People often praise big leaps, but most lasting achievements are built from small, consistent steps. The days when you feel you only managed that much are the very days you are training long-term resilience. When the storm passes, you don't have to start over. You simply accelerate from where you already stand. Starting small to survive chaos is not a temporary tactic. It is the foundation for any sustainable system. Life never announces when it will be calm and when it will be turbulent. If your system only survives in peace, it is not a system at all. Let each day, no matter how bad, still have 1 completed action. Just 1, but it keeps the rhythm, keeps the identity, keeps you in the game. And when you do this long enough, you will realize endurance does not come from powerful bursts, but from the ability to persist in small, steady steps, no matter the circumstances. Excitement is a flame that ignites easily but extinguishes just as quickly. Rhythm is a quiet but enduring flow. If your system is built on excitement, it will sway every time your emotions shift. But if it operates on rhythm, it will keep moving regardless of how you feel today. Excitement brings the initial burst, giving you the urge to do everything. But that power is not long-term fuel. It is like a strong wind filling the sail. When the wind changes direction or dies down, the boat will drift if there are no oars. Rhythm is formed through repetition. It doesn't ask whether you feel like it. It only asks that you continue. Like the beat of your heart or the flow of your breath, It creates stability that sustains things without demanding large amounts of willpower. A system that runs on rhythm makes action the default, with excitement as a bonus, not a prerequisite. The danger of relying on excitement lies in the illusion that you are doing great when emotions run high, and in allowing yourself to rest when emotions dip. This cycle creates erratic progress, spurts of acceleration followed by stalls, then acceleration again, without steady accumulation. The result is that you take longer to reach your goal and sometimes quit entirely. Rhythm, in contrast, may feel less dramatic, but accumulates power day after day. Someone who runs 20 minutes every morning for a year will go much farther than someone who runs intensely for 2 hours a few times, then stops completely due to burnout. The advantage of rhythm is predictability. You know when, what, and for how long, and you do it regardless of fleeting emotions. A system built on rhythm also frees you from the pressure of always being at your best. It allows days when you only perform at the minimum level, yet still keep the chain of action intact. This is more important than it seems, because continuity is what shapes identity. I am someone who always shows up, who doesn't quit. To build rhythm, you must first simplify. Too many goals or overly high demands will break the flow. Identify a few key actions and anchor them to fixed time slots. Repeating them at the same time trains the brain to anticipate and prepare, reducing resistance when starting. Once you have rhythm, you will find that excitement still appears, but it is no longer the deciding factor. There are training sessions where you start intending to do only the minimum, but once in the flow, your energy rises and you do more. This is the key difference. You don't need excitement to start, but excitement can be triggered by starting. Rhythm also reduces the risk of quitting during the valley phase, the time between initial effort and visible results. This is when many lose motivation because they see no payoff yet. But when you focus on rhythm, you are not obsessed with immediate results. You do it because it is part of who you are, and results arrive as an inevitable consequence. A simple example. A person who writes 500 words a day for a year will end up with nearly 200,000 words, enough for several books, even if not every day's writing is brilliant. A person who writes only when inspired may produce a few great passages, but can spend years without completing a single work. Rhythm creates accumulation that excitement can never match. It turns small steps into big results, transforms ordinary days into bricks that build a strong foundation. It also helps you sustain habits longer because you are not constantly burning yourself out and recovering. For a system to win through rhythm, you must define clearly. Minimum action, the lowest level you will perform, no matter how busy or tired. Experience, repetition, at the same time to form reflexes. Clear measurement, knowing whether you've completed something without relying on feelings. When these elements combine, you have a steady flow, and in that flow, excitement becomes a guest, not the host. It may come and go, but rhythm keeps you moving forward. Finally, the most important thing is to accept that days without excitement are a normal part of the journey. No one maintains positive emotions forever, but you can maintain action if you hold on to rhythm. This is an advantage that those who live by fleeting emotions will never have. Excitement is the starting point, rhythm is the destination, and a smart system will always choose the solid foundation over the passing wave. Every system, no matter how strong, has its weak points. What causes it to collapse is not always a major challenge, but often small, overlooked gaps. A seemingly harmless bad habit, a moment of letting your guard down, a repeated source of distraction over time, all can destroy the structure you've worked so hard to build. The strength of a system does not lie in how perfect it looks on paper, but in how it is designed to defend against familiar threats. To do this, you must first face your own weaknesses head-on. No sugarcoating, no self-justification, just honest observation. When are you most likely to lose focus? Which habits cause you to miss commitments? What kinds of pressure tend to throw you off track? Identifying weaknesses is not about self-blame. It's about preparation. A skilled driver doesn't just know how to accelerate on straight roads. They know when to slow down at a curve. The same applies to you. Understanding your limits is the only way to protect your long-term progress. Start by tracking your behavior. For a week, record moments when you intended to act but didn't. What was the reason? Fatigue, boredom, getting lost in your phone, or urgent interruptions? Once you have the data, you'll spot recurring patterns. These are exactly where you need to set up protective barriers. Protective barriers are mechanisms that prevent you from slipping, right from the start. If your phone causes you to lose hours mindlessly scrolling, keep it in another room during work hours. If afternoons are when your energy drops and you're likely to skip workouts, schedule exercise in the early morning. If your temptation is junk food, remove it from your kitchen and prepare healthy options in advance. The key is to avoid forcing your willpower to face temptation every day. Willpower is a limited resource. The more often you have to fight the same temptation, the weaker it becomes. Protective barriers eliminate situations that drain willpower, turning discipline into a natural reflex. A smart system treats protective barriers as mandatory, not optional. It understands that no matter how determined a person is, there will be times when they are tired and prone to compromise. It is in those moments of weakness that protective barriers make the right decision for you. It's important to note that barriers are not only for blocking the negative, but also for amplifying the positive. For example, if you want to read every night, place a book right on your pillow, so it's the first thing you see when you lie down. If you want to keep up a writing habit, keep the document file open and your computer ready. When the desired action is easier to start than the alternative, you've built a reverse barrier, pushing yourself toward the right path. Don't fool yourself into thinking you can completely eliminate weaknesses. The truth is, they will always exist. The difference is that you have prepared ways to deal with them. Winners are not those who never stumble, but those who don't fall too far when they do. Protective barriers keep you close enough to get back on track quickly once you regain balance. Some weaknesses come from your environment, others from within. For environmental weaknesses, you can change, rearrange, or remove the harmful factor. For internal ones, you need to create rules to self-regulate. Examples: no opening social media before completing the main task, or if I miss a day, the next day I must complete double the minimum version. These rules turn weaknesses into triggers for action rather than excuses to quit. Identifying weaknesses also helps you anticipate worst-case scenarios and prepare a plan B. If you know you tend to lose motivation when results come slowly, plan small milestones to keep yourself encouraged. If you know you are easily interrupted by unexpected work, leave buffer time in your schedule to handle it instead of letting it eat into your main task hours. Weaknesses are not stains. They are maps guiding you to optimize your system. The person who doesn't recognize their own weaknesses is the one most likely to fail, because they get blindsided by the same recurring issues. The person who has identified them knows where to place guards at the gate, build walls where needed, and open pathways where it's safe. Finally, understand that protective barriers are only strong if you actively check and upgrade them. Habits change, circumstances change, and new gaps will appear. Just as a fortress needs reinforcement, your system must be reviewed regularly so the barriers are always strong enough to withstand new pressures. A sustainable system is not one that never faces challenges, but one that knows where it is weak and places barriers in the right spots. Once you've done this, you no longer have to live in fear whenever a storm comes. You know that no matter how strong the wind blows, the most fragile parts of you are already protected. And that is why you remain standing when many others have already fallen. Difficult days are always the true test of any system or commitment. Anyone can move forward easily when everything is going well, when the body is strong, the mind is clear, and the surrounding environment is supportive. But your strength is not measured on such days. It reveals itself when everything is against you, when you are tired, under pressure, disappointed, or simply have no desire to do anything at all. Continuing under those circumstances is not an instinctive act, it is a conscious choice. Instinct will tell you to rest, postpone, or find something more pleasant. Reason will remind you that if you stop, your positive momentum will be lost, and getting back on track will be twice as hard. The gap between those who achieve what they want and those who quit is often just the ability to maintain even one small step forward on the worst days. Continuing does not mean keeping the same intensity as on good days. It means not letting the chain break. If you usually work out for 60 minutes, on hard days just do 15. If you usually read 20 pages, read 2 instead. What matters is preserving the behavior, because maintaining the habit is more important than the temporary result. Each time you manage to do this, you send yourself a powerful message. I do not let circumstances define my identity. That message gradually becomes deeply ingrained, turning into a foundational belief so that when challenges come, your reflex is to keep going instead of stopping. This belief cannot be bought with words. It is built through dozens, even hundreds of moments when you chose to move forward, despite everything telling you to stop. There's a truth few realize. Difficult days are actually an excellent opportunity to build inner strength. Good days give you results. Hard days give you depth. It's in exhaustion that you learn to work without the support of feelings. It's under pressure that you train the ability to focus amid chaos. It's in disappointment that you develop the patience to act without seeing immediate rewards. Many miss this opportunity because they focus only on the discomfort in front of them. They think, I'll make up for it tomorrow, without realizing that each time they do this, they are teaching themselves that quitting is acceptable. The habit of quitting is built in exactly the same way as the habit of perseverance, through repetition. And it is far more dangerous because it is easier to maintain. Continuing on difficult days has another benefit. It keeps the door to return always open. When you stop completely, your mind must fight through greater inertia to restart. But if you can maintain even a minimal version, you don't have to overcome the barrier of starting over. You simply raise the pace back to normal. Prepare yourself with a minimum mode to apply in such times. This is not leniency. It is a strategy to protect the system. When exhausted, do less but keep it consistent. When busy, choose the smallest part that still connects to the goal. This keeps you tied to the core behavior and protects your positive momentum. The power of continuing lies not in enthusiasm, but in preserving identity. Every time you act, despite not wanting to, you reaffirm to yourself, I am someone who does what needs to be done, not just what I feel like doing in the moment. When this identity is reinforced, the decision to keep going becomes less difficult, because it has become a natural reflex. People who succeed sustainably are not always stronger than others. They simply allow fewer gaps between actions. They know that one bad day doesn't decide the outcome, but a string of missed days does. So they do whatever it takes to protect that chain, even if it's the smallest action. In the end, remember, true strength does not come from winning when everything is easy, but from the ability to take one step, no matter how small, when everything is against you. Those steps accumulate into belief, stability, and a foundation that no storm can destroy. And it is that foundation that will carry you to your destination. Self-belief is not something you are born with. It is accumulated little by little, and its building material is the promises you keep to yourself. Every time you commit to doing something and actually follow through, whether big or small, you place another brick in the foundation of that belief. Conversely, every time you break a promise to yourself, you remove a brick, and if it happens often enough, the wall will collapse. The interesting thing is that this belief does not care how you explain yourself to others. You can convince outsiders with reasons, cite enough circumstances, but the part of you inside registers the truth. You either did it or you didn't. You are a witness you cannot deceive. That's why the fastest way to boost your confidence is not by seeking validation from others, but by becoming someone you yourself can trust. When you keep promises to yourself, you create a form of internal credibility credit. Each time you follow through, you give yourself more proof that I am someone who does what I say. And when you accumulate enough proof, you no longer need excessive motivation before each new goal, because deep down, you know you will do it. Your mind resists less because it has grown used to trusting your actions. On the other hand, if you frequently break promises to yourself, you will start doubting every new plan, not because it is too difficult, but because you no longer believe in your own ability to follow through. You set goals, but a part of your mind whispers, "You'll quit again." This is why many people start strong but never finish. They have already eroded their self-belief beforehand. Keeping promises to yourself doesn't have to start with big goals. In fact, the smartest way is to begin with commitments small enough to guarantee completion. If you want to exercise every morning, don't start with an hour-long run, start with 5 minutes. If you want to read daily, start with 2 pages. The purpose at this stage is not to change your life overnight, but to send your mind the message. We do what we say. Once that message is reinforced, you can gradually increase the difficulty and scale of your commitments. Each completed step continues to strengthen your belief, creating a positive loop. Completion, confidence, greater willingness to commit, more completion. This loop is the engine of sustainable growth. But there is another crucial factor: consistency. Keeping a promise once is easy, keeping it repeatedly is hard. Consistency not only makes belief stronger, but turns it into part of your identity. When you are used to, "If I say it, I'll do it," every new promise is automatically placed by your mind into the category of will happen rather than might happen. This greatly reduces internal resistance and speeds up action. Sometimes, keeping a promise to yourself means turning down immediate temptations, attractive invitations, or even the approval of others. This requires clarity about your priorities. What matters most to you? Without that clarity, you will easily be pulled away from your commitments whenever circumstances change. And each time that happens, you not only lose an opportunity to follow through, but also break a brick in the foundation of your self-belief. An effective way to protect a promise is to make it non-negotiable. Put it on your calendar, link it to another habit, or set a light penalty for failing to complete it. The less room you leave for internal negotiation, the higher your chances of keeping the commitment. Ultimately, remember that self-belief is not the result of a speech or a burst of inspiration. It is the product of countless small but consistent actions where you prove to yourself that you are trustworthy. Once you build this foundation, you no longer need someone to motivate you, nor do you depend on emotions or circumstances. You will keep moving forward simply because you know, deeply and certainly, that if you say you will do it, you will. And that is the kind of belief nothing can take away. The things that create breakthroughs are rarely moments of explosive emotion. They are usually built from repetitive, boring work with no immediate, visible result. The problem is that most people quit not because they lack skill, but because they cannot endure the monotony of the process. They chase novelty, forgetting that success does not care whether you are interested or not. It only responds to whether you show up consistently. Turning boring work into a daily default is how you free yourself from dependence on emotions. When you brush your teeth, you don't need motivation. You do it because it has become a default. The work necessary for your goal must reach the same level, no longer a daily decision, but a natural action that requires no deliberation. To do this, you must break the false expectation that every day must be special. There will be workouts with no new records, pages with no brilliant sentences, hours of work with no excitement. But if you skip them for lack of feeling, you will never go far enough to see results. This game is about accumulation, not bursts. An effective strategy is to reduce the complexity of deciding to start. Prepare your environment in advance. Remove unnecessary choices. Keep everything simple so you don't waste energy on, should I do this or not? Workout clothes laid next to the bed. Writing notebook open on the desk. Tools organized and easily accessible. The fewer barriers you have, the easier repetition becomes. When starting out, anchor the boring work to a fixed point in your day. For example, exercise right after making your morning coffee, or right immediately after replying to the first email. This linkage creates a signal for your brain that it's time for this, helping the habit form faster. Don't wait for inspiration. Let behavioral signals lead the way. Also, learn to redefine the meaning of boring. Instead of seeing it as punishment, see it as proof you are on the right path. The feeling of repetition is a sign you've entered the discipline zone, where 99% quit, but the remaining 1% keep going. When your mind starts complaining, "This is too dull," smile, because that's when you know you are doing what your competition won't sustain long enough. Another key factor is to focus more on the process than on immediate results. Make completing the task each day a small victory. Mark it on a calendar, record the number of completions, or reward yourself with a simple ritual. This way you maintain intrinsic motivation without depending on instant outcomes. The important thing is to never break the chain. Each time you skip a day, you not only lose that time, but also open the door for procrastination to return. The never miss twice rule will help you maintain momentum, even if one day you are forced to interrupt. When boring work has become the default, you'll realize you are moving forward without expending much willpower. At that point, you no longer have to convince yourself each morning. You simply do it. Like breathing, like brushing your teeth. And that is when results start to accumulate at a pace outsiders can't comprehend. The difference between someone who succeeds sustainably and someone who flares up then fades out lies right here. One sees repetitive work as the foundation, the other sees it as a burden. One turns it into instinct, the other lets emotion decide. And you must choose which side you belong to, starting today. Discipline is not measured by the day you work intensely and then collapse in exhaustion, never to continue. It is measured by the number of days you keep going, even when nothing feels new anymore, when no one is watching, when emotions no longer carry you forward. A short-lived burst is like a flare, brilliant but quick to fade. True discipline is a steady flame, burning evenly over the years, strong enough to light the way no matter how fierce the storm. The problem is that many people mistake initial motivation for lasting strength. They think a surge of enthusiasm is enough to carry them for the long term, but motivation is only the opening catalyst. What takes you to the finish line is persistence, the ability to do the right thing repeated long enough for the result to become undeniable. Persistence does not mean working blindly. It is the commitment to follow principles, even if progress is slow, even if results are not yet visible. Those who lack persistence often quit before the fruit is ripe. They plant a seed, water it for a few days, then pull it up to check because they think it's not growing. Persistent people understand that the process takes time, and that their daily work is the water and light that nourish their goal. To build disciplined persistence, you must establish a system instead of chasing inspiration. A system is a sequence of specific actions, with a schedule and standards that does not depend on whether you feel like doing it today. When the system runs, you no longer need to debate with yourself each morning because everything has already been set, like a route you must travel. Another factor is the ability to endure monotony. Persistence means accepting that some days will pass without anything remarkable, yet still completing each small step. This is the power of accumulation. Each repeated action is a brick in the foundation, and you never know which brick will make the wall strong enough to withstand the test. Short-lived bursts often create the illusion that you are moving quickly, but when emotions drop, progress collapses. Persistence is the opposite. It moves slowly but never stops, and it is the refusal to stop that leaves others behind. Remember, 100 small steps every day for 100 days will take you much farther than 1,000 steps in a single day, followed by 99 days of standing still. An effective strategy is to set a daily minimum standard, small enough to leave no room for excuses, but large enough to maintain momentum. For example, if your goal is to write a book, your minimum could be 200 words per day. Many days you will exceed that number, but even when busy or tired, you still keep the rhythm. In addition, create proof of your persistence. Record the number of consecutive days you complete your work, mark it on a calendar, or save the results. When you see that chain of consistency, you will not want to break it, and that becomes a second form of motivation, the drive to protect the achievement you have built. Ultimately, disciplined persistence is not a streak of perfect days, but a streak of days without quitting. There will be times you do less than planned, days when efficiency drops, but what matters is that you still show up and keep going. Persistence doesn't require you to win every day. It only requires you not to turn a small failure into a reason to give up entirely. Real success comes when you stop seeking the spark of excitement to start, and instead rely on a solid structure, maintaining it regardless of fleeting emotions. When you understand that discipline is persistence, not a burst, you will no longer fear losing motivation, because by then you will have something far stronger, the power of someone who stands firm day after day until the destination appears. Boredom is the silent enemy most people try to avoid. We live in an era where everything is designed to constantly stimulate us, conditioning the mind to seek instant novelty. But because of this, the majority never go deep enough into anything to reach mastery. The irony is that all great achievements are built on a foundation of repetition, and repetition means accepting boredom as an inevitable part of the journey. When you practice a skill, build a habit, or sustain a long-term project, there will always come a stage when each day looks exactly the same. The initial sense of discovery is gone, the intense excitement fades. Instead, there are mornings when you must do the exact same thing you did yesterday, last week, last month. This is when most people quit, not because they lack ability, but because they cannot endure the feeling of nothing new. But boredom is not a sign you are on the wrong path. It is proof that you are in the accumulation zone, where progress is too small to notice day by day, but is quietly compounding to create a future leap. Someone who knows how to respect boredom understands that it is the incubation environment for lasting achievement. Respecting boredom does not mean passively accepting a dull life. It is the skill of turning monotony into an advantage. When others quit because of emptiness, you keep going, and it is this continuation that leaves them far behind. This is the principle that separates those who reach the top from those who remain average. To do this, you must shift your perspective. Instead of seeing boredom as a destroyer, see it as a signal that you are following the right process. Every successful athlete, musician, and entrepreneur has spent thousands of hours repeating the same movement, the same process, the same principle. They are not chasing novelty every day. They are pursuing refinement with every repetition. One way to train your ability to endure boredom is to assign meaning to each repetition. Don't think, "I'm just doing the same old thing." Think, "I am reinforcing another brick in my wall." The way you define the experience will determine how you respond to it. If you see it as meaningless work, you will drain yourself mentally. But if you see it as a necessary step, you will have a reason to continue. Also, recognize that boredom is where true grit is tested. Anyone can perform well when things are fresh and exciting, but only those who maintain high standards during the monotone phase can rise into the top 1%. Boredom doesn't kill you. It filters out those without consistency, ensuring the reward belongs only to the few. Focus on the process, not the feeling. You don't need to feel excited every day. You just need to make sure you've completed the necessary work today. Every time you get through a boring day without lowering your standards, you quietly increase your endurance, build mental resilience, and train your brain to operate by commitment rather than emotion. And eventually you will find boredom has become an ally. When others panic because there is no new stimulation, you calmly keep doing your work. When they burn their energy on short-term excitement, you are storing energy for long-term results. This is how you win, not with short-lived bursts, but with quiet endurance. The truth is, you don't have to love every moment of the journey, but you must respect it. Every boring day you overcome is a link connecting you to results that the impatient will never achieve. When you learn to respect boredom, you gain an advantage most of the world will never bother to develop, and that is what carries you to the finish line. Pressure makes people act quickly, but it cannot be sustained for long. Patterns are the opposite. They don't push you to sprint, they pull you along for the marathon. This difference is the dividing line between someone who must constantly strain to maintain performance and someone who can steadily move forward without burning out. Pressure drains mental energy. It creates the feeling that everything must be done immediately, forcing you to use willpower to fight off procrastination or fatigue. But willpower is a finite resource. When it runs out, performance plummets, morale sinks, and the vicious cycle begins. Patterns are different. They are self-operating structures that minimize decision-making and remove the need to try constantly. Look at a soldier, an athlete, or a master musician. They don't start each day by asking, "Should I train today?" The schedule, the habits, and the process are already set. All they need to do is step into the flow. Action happens not because of excitement or pressure, but because a pattern has been ingrained into their operating system. Patterns free you from willpower drain because everything becomes default. You are no longer choosing between do and don't do, because there is only one option: continue following the set template. This creates incredible strength. You keep progressing without mental erosion because your brain is no longer wrestling with countless small daily decisions. To build a pattern, you need three things: simplicity, consistency, and alignment with long-term goals. Simplicity makes it easy to start and maintain. Consistency builds strong neural pathways. Alignment with long-term goals ensures every small action compounds value over time. A good pattern is like a pre-laid road. Just keep walking on it and you'll reach the destination without overthinking. The important thing is not to confuse patterns with rigidity. Patterns don't lock you into a dead structure. They give you a frame in which to create. A musician follows rhythm, but within that rhythm, they can improvise endlessly. An entrepreneur keeps fixed working hours, but within that frame, they can continuously innovate strategies. Structure enables freedom. It doesn't limit it. When you use pressure as your engine, you often fall into the cycle of rush, burnout, quitting, then straining again. When you use patterns, you escape this cycle because the pace is already stable. Like a train running steadily on tracks, there's no sudden acceleration, no abrupt braking, just steady, derailment-free movement. The problem is, many people only remember pressure, forgetting patterns. They're used to letting deadlines chase them, letting fear of failure or financial pressure force them forward. As a result, their mind is always tense, and when the pressure disappears, they stop. In contrast, someone operating on patterns doesn't need threats or deadlines. Their actions are inevitable, requiring no justification. To shift from pressure to pattern, start by identifying the core behaviors that bring long-term results. Then lock them into fixed slots in your schedule. Don't wait for inspiration. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Turn these actions into daily rituals, like brushing your teeth or washing your face, things that happen without internal debate. Once a pattern is running, you'll realize you no longer have to strain to move forward. Pressure might help you win a few battles, but patterns help you win the entire war. Those who rely on pressure live in constant tension. Those who rely on patterns live in certainty. And that certainty is the foundation that lets you go far without being worn down from within. In the end, remember, pressure is a strong gust of wind that can push you forward for a moment, but patterns are the steady current that carries you to your destination. Which one you choose to live and work by will determine whether you're a short-lived flare or someone who endures over time. Big goals often overwhelm people, not because they are impossible, but because the mind doesn't know where to start. When the entire picture is too vast, the brain will instinctively look for excuses to procrastinate in order to avoid the feeling of pressure. The way to break this paralysis is to divide the goal into repeatable steps, small enough to start immediately and simple enough to sustain over the long term. The brain is wired to love completion. Every time you finish a task, no matter how small, your nervous system releases dopamine, creating a sense of satisfaction and prompting you to continue. When you break a 5-year goal into daily actions, you create a constant dopamine loop, turning a long journey into short-term rewards you can feel right away. This is why effective systems for training, language learning, or building wealth are all based on the small step, repeated consistently model. The key is that each step must be clear enough so you don't have to think too much before doing it. Write a book is a vague command that invites procrastination. But write 300 words every morning at 7 a.m. is specific, achievable, and leaves no room for internal negotiation. Repeat this action 365 times, and you will have a complete manuscript, without going through bursts of effort followed by burnout. Breaking down a goal does not mean fragmenting it into meaningless pieces. Each step must connect directly to the larger goal, just as each brick placed in the right position builds a solid wall. A repeatable step is one that fits within your current capacity while also compounding value over time. On the other hand, if you only do busy work that has no link to the destination, you'll waste time and energy without moving closer to the goal. Repeating small steps also allows you to refine your skills with each cycle. Every repetition is an opportunity to learn and improve, creating double accumulation. Both in quantity and in quality, this is especially crucial in fields that demand precision, such as art, business, or sports. A professional golfer doesn't practice a brand new swing every day. They refine the same movement over and over until it becomes an instinctive perfection. Breaking goals into smaller steps also helps you maintain momentum when motivation wanes. When you only need to complete a small, repeatable step, the psychological barrier is much lower than facing the entire project at once. Some days you won't be at your best, but you can still complete one cycle and keep the system running. This lack of interruption is the key to sustainable progress. The danger is that many people get stuck in preparing to break it down mode forever. They spend weeks planning, analyzing, optimizing, but never start the first cycle. The real power of breaking down goals only emerges when you start doing and sustain it long enough for the cycle to become a habit. Each completed cycle not only brings you closer to your goal, but also reinforces your identity. You become someone who acts, not just someone who plans. Think of a goal as a mountain. Pressure is when you stand at the base, look up, and wonder if you have the strength to reach the peak. Breaking it down is when you look down, focus on the next step, and place your foot forward. Each repeatable step is part of the journey, and at some point, when you look up, you realize you're already close to the summit, without ever feeling overwhelmed. Once you master this technique, every big goal becomes achievable. You don't need explosive bursts of effort or rare flashes of inspiration. You need a chain of clear, repeatable actions, each one meaningful. Greatness doesn't come from a single leap. It comes from thousands of small steps taken with the same consistency. And when you look back, you'll see that it was those steady, repeated steps that shaped the person you have become. When willpower collapses and your spirit is worn out, the only thing that can keep you from hitting rock bottom is structure. Willpower is a finite resource. It erodes with every decision you have to make throughout the day. But structure is different. It doesn't need inspiration. It doesn't need motivation. It doesn't depend on fleeting emotions. It is the solid framework for the days when you are exhausted, the track that keeps the train moving, even when the driver has no strength left. Structure is not a rigid schedule meant to imprison you. It is a set of principles, time blocks, and sequences of actions designed in advance so you don't waste energy thinking, "What should I do today?" When everything already has its place in the structure, you just step into it and operate. Like a door supported by hinges, you don't have to strain to keep it standing. Imagine an athlete at the peak of their performance. They don't need motivation to train every morning because their training schedule is fixed, their workouts predetermined, and all they have to do is show up. Structure frees them from the burden of choice, allowing their mental energy to be spent on execution rather than decision-making. And when bad days come, due to injury, lack of sleep, or pressure, it is structure that ensures they don't quit altogether. Those without structure easily fall into the blank day spiral when you skip one day, then find a reason to skip another, until returning becomes too hard. But if you have structure, even if you only complete 50% of the work on a bad day, you still maintain momentum. That continuity matters more than intensity because it keeps the system alive, and when strength returns, you can accelerate immediately. Structure is also a mental anchor. In chaos, people look for something they can lean on. A morning that starts with familiar routines, drinking water, breathing exercises, journaling, not only keeps the body in operational mode, but also sends a message to the mind: we're still in control. This is especially valuable when you're going through major upheavals, because it creates a sense of stability amid the unpredictable. However, structure only exerts its power when designed intelligently. It needs to be firm enough not to break easily, but flexible enough to adjust when circumstances change. A structure that's too strict will snap under disruption, while one that's too loose won't be enough to keep you standing. The finesse lies in identifying pillar actions, the things you always do no matter what, and flexible zones that allow you to adapt without dismantling the entire system. When you have structure, you no longer rely on inspiration to act. Inspiration becomes a bonus, not a starting condition. And when inspiration comes, it will be channeled into an existing framework, turning temporary energy into lasting results. Conversely, if you rely only on inspiration, you'll remain stuck in the cycle of burst, burn, burnout, abandonment. The remarkable thing is that structure doesn't take away freedom, it creates the foundation for freedom to exist. An artist with fixed creative hours actually has more space for creativity than someone who waits for inspiration to arrive, because they train their brain to activate at the right time. True freedom is not doing whatever you want whenever you want. It is having the ability to do what matters, even when you don't feel like it. Structure, at its core, is a commitment to yourself, made tangible through actions and time. It is the reminder that you chose this path, and even if today you feel weak, the path is still there for you to keep walking. When you understand this, you'll no longer fear the days when your spirit sinks to the bottom, because you know there's still a system holding you from freefall. And one day, you'll realize that strength doesn't come from the moments you burn brightly, but from the days when you feel like you have nothing left to give, yet still cling to the structure and take one more step forward. That is when structure becomes not just an anchor, but the very legs that lift you back up so you can keep going until the end. Vague dreams are something that can easily captivate people, yet they are also what cause millions to live their whole lives inside the realm of imagination without taking a single step forward. You can talk about them, write them down, even visualize them in detail, but if each day of yours does not contain concrete actions to get closer, that dream is nothing more than a form of entertainment for the mind. Beautiful, stimulating, but useless in producing results. What keeps many people stuck is not a lack of ambition, but the lack of transition from dreaming to doing. In the dream zone, everything is perfect. There are no risks, no failures. But when moving into the doing zone, you must face resistance, mistakes, and the slow pace of progress. This is why the brain often chooses to stay in the comfort of vagueness instead of stepping into the discomfort of real action. The only way to break this cycle is to force yourself to turn each dream into a series of specific actions repeated daily. If your dream is to write a book, don't say, "I'll write when I'm ready," but set a rule. Every morning at 6:30, I write 500 words. If you want a healthy body, don't leave it as, "I'll work out when I have time," but fix your training schedule, divide it into clear exercises, and repeat without negotiation. Specific action has three characteristics. It is measurable, repeatable, and not dependent on inspiration. Measurable, so you know whether you're progressing or standing still. Repeatable, to create momentum. Not dependent on inspiration, to remove emotional fluctuations from the success equation. When all three are present, small actions accumulate power, and one day you'll be surprised to find that the gap between where you are and your dream has shrunk to the point where only one last step is needed to reach it. Many fear that daily action will kill excitement. In reality, it's the opposite. Every time you take action, the brain receives the signal that this matters, thereby strengthening emotional connection to the goal. True excitement doesn't come from a distant vision, but from the feeling that you are creating real movement. Another important point, specific actions don't need to be big. In fact, the smaller the better in the early stages, as long as you maintain continuity. A sudden leap can create excitement, but can also lead to burnout. Meanwhile, 100 small steps taken daily will take you further than any inspired sprint. Replacing vague dreams with specific daily actions also helps you discover which goals truly suit you. Sometimes what you think you want is merely an illusion. Only when you step into action and collide with reality do you see whether it's worth pursuing or needs adjusting. And this adjustment is an essential part of the process, not a failure. More importantly, specific daily action creates a sense of ownership over your life. You are no longer waiting for someday, a day that may never come. Instead, you become the one steering the process, deciding the pace and direction. This sense of control is what separates those who turn dreams into reality from those who remain on the sidelines watching others pass by. And then, there will be days you don't want to do it, days when everything seems against you. On those days, specific action becomes even more critical, because it is the rope that keeps you from drifting back into the vague zone. Every time you get through a day like that, you not only move closer to your goal, but also build another layer of discipline, making you stronger for the road ahead. Vague dreams give you inspiration, specific actions give you results, and when results come, inspiration will no longer be something you have to look for, it will come to you, because you have proven that you are someone who dares to turn someday into right now. A clear mind does not happen naturally. It directly reflects how you manage each day of your life. A chaotic day leaves its imprint on your mind. Overlapping thoughts, impulsive reactions, and mental fatigue that make it difficult to make sound decisions. In contrast, a well-controlled day becomes a natural filter, keeping your mind sharp and eliminating disruptive noise. Controlling your day does not mean cramming your schedule full or working non-stop. It is the art of allocating your energy and attention to what truly matters, while also creating space for your brain to rest and recharge. To do this, you must start by setting the main framework for your day, non-negotiable, fixed activities. These could be your wake-up time, deep work sessions, workout hours, and uninterrupted rest periods. The next step is controlling your information intake. The mind cannot remain clear if, from the moment you wake up, it is pulled into emails, social media, or chaotic news. Every piece of information you take in occupies part of your brain's working memory, and if you allow it to be filled with meaningless clutter, you will lose the ability to focus on what is essential. This is why many successful people follow the principle of no random information intake before completing the most important task of the day. Controlling your day also requires being intentional with empty spaces. Your schedule should have white zones, time to think, observe, or simply breathe deeply. Many people mistakenly see empty space as wasteful, but in reality, this is when the brain processes and organizes information, allowing you to see issues more clearly and make better decisions. In addition, pay attention to how you open and close activities. Starting work with a small ritual, such as tidying your desk or writing down a clear objective, helps your brain shift into focus mode. Ending a task with a closing action, like turning off notifications or putting away documents, signals to your brain that the process is complete, preventing stress from carrying over into the next activity. Controlling your day is also about managing your energy. Don't allow yourself to burn out by pouring all your effort into the morning, only to drift into a fog in the afternoon. Instead, divide your energy into multiple waves, alternating between high-intensity tasks and short breaks. Your brain will maintain sharpness for longer, and you will greatly reduce the risk of making poor decisions simply because of fatigue. Most importantly, controlling your day means deciding what is worth reacting to. Not every message requires an immediate reply. Not every call must be answered instantly. Every time you break your train of thought to respond to an external trigger, your brain needs several minutes to regain focus. Sticking to the principle of proactive response rather than instinctive reaction will help you maintain clarity all day long. When you know how to design and protect each day, you not only keep your mind clear, but also build a chain of positive days that flow into one another. Each day becomes a solid brick, and this chain of bricks will support all your bigger goals. That is when you realize clarity does not come from sudden bursts of inspiration. It is the result of consistently controlling every moment you live. Energy is always in flux. There are days when you wake up full of enthusiasm, everything flows smoothly as if the whole world is on your side. But there are also days when, despite sleeping enough and eating well, you still feel heavy, sluggish, and unwilling to do anything. If your life operates solely on that emotional energy, your performance will be inconsistent, your results unpredictable, and discipline will only exist when you feel like it. In contrast, structure does not depend on mood. It's like a set of tracks. Whether the weather is sunny or stormy, the train still runs in the right direction. Structure gives you an anchor when emotions are tangled and motivation is depleted. It ensures you complete the important tasks, not because you feel like doing them, but because they are part of a preset system. To build structure, you must determine your daily non-negotiable pillars. Activities that do not depend on emotion. These could be your wake-up time, workout sessions, deep work blocks, or reading and learning habits. Once set, they are not things you do when you're in the mood, but things you do even when you don't want to. The strength of structure is that it reduces willpower drain. Instead of asking yourself every morning, "Should I exercise today?" you simply do it because it's a natural part of your day. Your mind is not scattered by internal negotiations, and your mental energy is preserved for more important decisions. Some people fear that structure will make life rigid and strip away freedom. In reality, structure is what creates freedom, because it frees you from the chaos of having to constantly make decisions when you're tired or uninspired. It keeps you on track even during low mood phases, so that when energy returns, you're already further ahead, instead of having to start over. More importantly, structure doesn't have to be complicated. Often, just 3 to 5 fixed time blocks in a day to handle your main work areas, while leaving flexible gaps for unexpected events, is enough. The key is to protect these main anchors strictly, like meetings with yourself that no one is allowed to cancel. Once you get used to relying on structure, you'll notice a profound shift. Your results become more consistent, Your confidence grows because you know you can depend on your actions rather than fleeting emotions. And in the long run, it's this structure that will support you in reaching goals that those who live only on energy will never attain. Because ultimately, energy is just the wind. Sometimes strong, sometimes weak, sometimes shifting direction. Structure is the sturdy vessel that carries you through the waves to the right shore, no matter the weather. Failure is something that will inevitably happen, no matter how skilled or disciplined you are. The issue is not about avoiding failure entirely, but about building a system strong enough to keep running even when you stumble. Many people quit, not because they lack ability, but because everything they do depends on everything going perfectly. Just one missed beat and the entire plan collapses. A good system is designed with the assumption that there will be days you miss, weeks you don't hit your goals, times you feel exhausted or lose direction. But when that happens, instead of having to start over from zero, the system helps you pick up exactly where you left off, without losing too much momentum. The way to achieve this is by building protective layers. For example, if your goal is to exercise every morning, have a minimum version you can still do when you have no energy, like just 10 minutes of walking or a few basic movements. This keeps the habit from breaking completely while reducing the heavy feeling of failure. Next, the system must have a recovery mechanism. Some people fail for a day and then punish themselves by skipping the whole week. Meanwhile, someone with a system only needs a return ritual, a simple action that restarts the cycle. This could be rewriting your to-do list, tidying your desk, or completing a small but psychologically impactful task to reignite momentum. Another key point: a system doesn't just manage success, it also manages failure. It contains rules that tell you when to rest, when to adjust, and when to accelerate. This makes failure a predictable part of the process, rather than a shock that destroys motivation. If you rely solely on bursts of excitement, you'll perform well when things go smoothly, but collapse when obstacles appear. But if you have a system, even in your worst phases, you can still maintain a minimum level. That minimum is the rope that keeps you tethered, so that when things improve, you don't have to start again from the very beginning. In the long run, it's the ability to function in a state of failure that creates sustainability. Life is never a straight line of constant growth. It moves in cycles of ups and downs. Those without a system will free fall when heading downhill. Those with a system will slide slightly, stabilize, and wait for the right moment to climb again. True success doesn't come from never falling, but from the fact that every time you fall, you still have a path, a rhythm, and a structure to keep going. The system is that safety net. Not flashy, but the thing that keeps you in the game for the long haul.